countdown. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's setting it up.
You need a pen?
Yeah,
There's one over there. I'm sorry, I would get up, but
I get a little head start on myself. All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Sydney Walker.
we're live. Uh-oh. The screen is freezing.
And I on that you may remember she was on talking about the certification process for minority and women businesses. Now, for residents who are from the city of Dallas, may remember Raquel F. Favela. She was here when TC Broadnax first came on as the city manager. She was his right hand. I have been fortunate enough to learn a lot about housing opportunities, ways to get it funded, creative things that you can do to help out people not get displaced from their homes. Now, today she's going to take a completely different lane in her wheelhouse and talk about funding opportunities, since we have seen just I don't want to say a collapse, but a huge shift in our economics and how it is impacting our everyday people. But most importantly, since the 90s, when there was such a huge push with small businesses, watching our small businesses kind of just fall to the wayside one by one and kind of miss out on some opportunities to help them during these times that we're in because of COVID-19. So, good morning, and thank you, ladies, for coming on the show. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Raquel, I am not getting any sound from you. Tawanna.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Raquel, let's do another sound check for you.
Good morning.
Good morning. There we go. So, ladies, thank you again for giving your time, coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming and giving the opportunity to educate my viewers on what it is that they can do. One, if they have a small business and they may have missed out on the first round of PPP support, but also what are some other opportunities out there if someone is kind of on the fence and thinking about, is this the right time to create a business and open it during these what feels like very scary times?
Great.
So, Raquel, go ahead and introduce yourself and really tell people who you are who may not have known your tenure when you were a city hall.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Raquel Favela, and I am with the National Development Council. And I actually have been with the National Development Council, except for the time that I came to Dallas to help TC with the economic development and housing portfolio. I've been at NDC since about 2007.
Okay.
So have spent about 10 years at NDC, a little over 10 years now. And when I left the city of Dallas, I had looked at some opportunities, including some in Dallas, and decided that I wanted to really continue to work on strategic planning efforts for economic development and housing.
Okay, great.
Which was not something the organization did. And yet they saw that there was a lot of potential for us to do that as an organization. And so they asked me to come and do it for NDC. So it's
well, great. I appreciate, yes, your efforts and your wealth of knowledge. So I know that you were doing a bang up job for them and appreciate the opportunities that they have extended to help out here, not just in the city of Dallas, but the county of Dallas, and also our northern cities and counties, especially Collin and part of Denton County,
Mhm.
with extending that hand during these times. So, Coach Tawanna Heyward-Bey. She is my go-to with any questions about how to navigate certification processes when it comes to being a small business. So, young lady.
Wonderful. Well, Cindy, thank you for having me back. It is wonderful to be with you on your show again. I think the last time we did this was 2 years ago, about this time we were talking about
Yes, way too long.
way too long, but you know what? We are here today. We are sisters in business, educating and equipping our communities, and so that's what I love about you and appreciate that. But I am Coach Tawanna. I'm known as Coach Tawanna. I have been an entrepreneur and self-employed business owner for 15 years now, and I bootstrapped from the beginning for recruitment and staffing business right there in Dallas, Texas, certifying my business. And I think one of the first things that I want to say specifically for this time is it's very important to get yourself educated. I remember in the beginning of launching my business, going to a networking event, learning about certifications, minority business certifications, women certifications, veterans, LGBTQ, these certifications and how they can be a game changer. And once I learned that, when I launched my business 15 years ago, it wasn't even 4 months as I was waiting for my certification to become activated and valid, I was hit with an opportunity. And when I say hit, I mean like, hey,
Wow.
We would love to work with you. We would love to have you as a subcontractor. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But that put me on the path and put me on the journey of contracting and having an opportunity to win contracts as a certified business owner. And I will tell you, now is a very good time to consider certifying your business. If you are a small business owner, you're a woman. If you are a minority, and when I say minority, I'm talking specifically about African Americans, Hispanic, Asian, and Native American. If you're in the LGBTQ community, or if you are a veteran, now is the time. This is not the time to sit back and wonder what next. Now is the time because it is an alternative to scaling your business, and there are opportunities right now. That first contract I won in less than 6 months was 7 figures. Try $1.2 million. And it just opened up the floodgates, and this is what I do today. I continue to bid on contracts as a certified business owner, and I continue to teach and educate small business owners all over the country. That's what I do, and that's why I'm known as Coach Tawanna.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Raquel, listening to Coach Tawanna speak about, how this is a time to seize versus kind of sit back and wait for recovery to happen. So I know we talked quite a bit during the time when the CARES Act first came about, and those first round of loans kind of got scooped up super fast. And so with that being said, I know people can be a little cautious, downright scared, fearful to do this. So what are some opportunities to look for that you're getting started, or you're still in that first 6 months to a year time period where you could just need a little bit of help to get to that next level to make things really kick off with your new business?
Yeah, some of that is going to be informed, honestly, by what we've seen. As an organization, we've been a PPP lender.
Okay.
So I can tell you some of the obstacles with some of the newer businesses. Anytime you get an idea to start a business, I think the first instinct is to first test it out and then maybe think about formalizing the business. And really, you need to think about that in the reverse. The minute you decide that you're going to go into business, you need to formalize that structure.
Okay.
And you need to decide first, register the business. You need to register your business with the state. And so that first step really involves you thinking about a name. And most people, really underestimate what that process means. It means you've got to come up with at least 3 names that really tell what your business is, and then go make sure nobody else has used that name before.
So you're talking about just starting with the DBA process.
That's right. Well, starting with the name that you're going to register, either your limited liability corporation, your LLC.
Okay.
Right? And then you can do a DBA, right? You can do business as, but you need to decide on a legal structure.
Okay.
Right. And the LLC gives you a legal structure for your organization that will protect your personal assets.
Okay.
And that has been very important in this process, is that oftentimes people will say, well, I thought this was a side hustle. I wanted to start it off as a side hustle. And so I thought maybe I would just first put it on my own personal income tax returns. And I would tell you that's a mistake.
Okay.
Yes, you're right.
So no matter how small you are, no matter if you were sitting around crafting jewelry, doing consulting, because I know I was a registered dietitian, fitness trainer. Before you do that first session or anything of that nature, go ahead and file your structure.
Yes, ma'am, because we live in a litigious society.
Yes.
The minute you will earn $1, you need to think about, do I want to run the risk that I personally will be sued? And then every single one of my personal assets is at risk. And so that is no, you don't. Okay. So you need to very quickly check your name out, make sure it's not being used, register your business with the state, then set up your LLC.
Okay.
And that's your legal structure. I mean, you can certainly set up another type of limited liability partnership, for example, an LLP. Sure. But for the most part, an LLC for most businesses is a good structure to go with. Certainly, you'll want to consult an attorney to talk you through that. Then the next step, honestly, is to think about your tax structure, because you want to think about how you're going to maximize your tax savings as a new business. And that is setting up your S corporation. That's probably going to give you the most tax savings as a business. And that's something that most of the small businesses have overlooked. Again, LLC is just the legal structure of the business. S corporation is the tax structure of the business. So once you set that up, what will happen is that then you have a way of, what happens when you set up the S corporation, though, is you must pay yourself a salary as the owner. Okay.
And isn't that one set up where you have a board as well? So you have to keep a lot of documentation in relationship to your who your board members are, your meetings, your bylaws, all of that good stuff?
You can keep the board very simple. So you don't have to create a complicated board structure. You'll just have an S corporation. The board can be basically 2 people, 3 people, doesn't matter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very simple. But what it really is going to affect is how you're going to pay taxes, right? So rather than paying taxes on your full net profit, you're going to have net profit minus the owner's salary, and you'll pay taxes on that.
Oh, right? Wow.
And then you're only going to pay your personal income tax on the salary that you draw.
You're paid. Okay.
That's what you're, otherwise, you would be paying taxes, corporate taxes, on the full amount, right? And so that's what people need to be thinking about. And so I can tell you, having processed a lot of these PPP applications, one is, especially in communities of color, most of the businesses are set up as sole proprietorships.
Yes.
And you can have a sole proprietorship that is an LLC.
Okay.
That's perfectly okay. However, unfortunately, what that means is you have no payroll, right? And
Oh,
okay,
really?
so
Yes.
as a sole proprietorship, most of the reason that they set that up that way is because most of their employees are contract employees, right?
They're 1099
employees, exactly, not W-2 employees.
Okay.
And so now, when the PPP was first rolled out, there was no guidance issued on how we were to treat the sole proprietorships, right?
Okay.
Later in the process, there was some guidance issued. Sole proprietorships could calculate basically based on the net profit earnings times 2.5. So it takes into account some of the earnings of the owners and some of the wages and salaries that they pay through that calculation in their income tax return. So I think that those are the things where I think a lot of the persons who are thinking about starting a business need to make sure they start with the fundamentals. Take it seriously. You know, honestly, if the business doesn't take off, you've lost nothing. But if it does take off and you didn't take advantage, yes, you've protected yourself and you've maximized your tax savings as a business owner.
Wow. So with that being said, Coach Tawanna, I know quite a few people, and I know you have given your opinion about this with not looking for government contracts as your first part of your business to get your business going. And I know that has a lot to do with, because she's my girl, I listen to her, capacity and making sure that you have what it takes to actually deliver on your business and making sure that you can do what you say that you do. But in the meantime, in between time, building that capacity once you've gotten, because we're all, look, I only know really smart people, and these two women here, they're going to get you together on this. So we have followed Raquel's advice, and we've gotten our structure down on paper, which protects us personally. Make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success. And so now we're looking at who our customers are going to be, which eventually, yes, we do want to get the city, county, state, federal contracts, but we don't always have to start there as far as being a vendor for someone. Correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Look, my head is spinning because Raquel, you really hit some major points, and you know, I'm very mindful of the time because Cindy told me, all right, we're not going to go all day here, but let me say
easily could for sure. Yes,
I know. Let me just back up because I want to make sure that the listeners did not miss what Raquel said about those fundamentals.
Okay.
Is extremely important. Those fundamentals are what I call those first things first. If you are considering launching a business or even expanding your business during this time, because we know some people work a 9 to 5 and they got their little their side hustle on the side, and now with this pandemic they have to pivot. We've heard a lot about pivoting and trying to grow and expand what you have in place. You have to have those first things first in line. All right. Those first things first, like structuring your business and making sure, if you're not sure, research. That's one of the first, this is business 101. Research market, research. Make sure you understand these different structures, a LLC opposed to an S Corp or a C Corp. I remember when I launched my business, I thought I did some good research. That's probably, Raquel, the first time I learned it's probably a good idea to have a good coach and mentor. It's probably a good idea to have a good CPA. Oh, and I better get a lawyer too. Because what happened, I was a sole proprietor and won a contract worth millions, and now I'm in the wrong tax bracket, as you were talking about. And
oh,
it's important, ladies and gentlemen, to approach business from an A game mindset. I need to be excellent, because it's not going to always be about hustle and grind, but it's going to be about building something where I can have several revenue streams, I can have generational wealth, I can participate and give back to economic development, I can help my community, I can tithe to the good Lord. I'm gonna stop my list right there, because I think we understand what I'm saying.
yes.
Fundamentals, those first things first, they are crucial. You must research the market. You must make sure that you understand what you are getting yourself into, researching your competitors, researching what's going on within your industry. All those things are important, because once you start what we call business development, and we start looking at how we're going to reach that target audience or target market or ideal client avatar, I know I'm talking to somebody here who's understanding this language. You want to make sure you got your ducks in a row, and your foundation of fundamentals and first things first is on solid ground, not sand that's sinking before you even come out the door.
That's right.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a huge consideration, is really making sure that, one, you understand not just the overall market, but who your target audience is, and making sure that you're prepared in that capacity. Right. So I do want to make a little shift here, because people are always talking about funding. And so during these times, when March hit and shelter in place was put in, my biggest complaint was shelter in place was a time period that should allow for a game plan to get put together. And that game plan didn't materialize. And so we ended up seeing a lot of people losing their jobs, unemployment claims skyrocketing, and small businesses who became a huge component of our economic system failing during this time, because they didn't have the millions cash on hand that we saw with some of the franchises were getting the PPP loans. And everyone, whether you still had a job or not, were complaining that, the perception was, me here with my small LLC, S Corp, all of those things, I'm generating less than $1 million of revenue, or sales, or anything of that capacity. And we were missing out on getting those loans. So Raquel, yes.
Yeah, so two reasons why that happened. One is, of course, as we alluded to already, businesses of color don't start out with a CPA informing them, right?
Okay.
So when you are a larger small business, you still have to meet that definition. But when you are not, as the owner, handling your financial books, right? You have a CPA who's handling that. And so even as the PPP program and the EIDL program were being developed, the CPAs were getting all of their clients' documents in order and ready to go.
Okay.
And one of the things that was sort of a huge, I think, a little bit of a misunderstanding, to be honest, about why banks were only servicing their customers, it's a regulatory issue, right? They're not allowed to serve anyone who's not a customer. Why? Because they have to be able to certify that the funds that the person they're dealing with didn't have access to those funds through illegal, activities. Okay. And the only way that a financial institution can really certify that is being able to see those deposits and those outs, right? The in and outs of a bank account is what tells a financial institution whether that business is legitimate, right? Whether it's transacting in legal activities. So I really don't want to beat up too much on the banks for that reason. There's other reasons to beat up on banks, but not that one, because that really was not their choice. It's a regulatory issue. They really couldn't do a PPP loan for anyone that they were not doing business with. And so, of course, if you were a large business with a CPA and you were banking with one of the large banks, your application went in immediately and you were processed. So by the time the little guys, like a sole proprietorship, went to apply, well, geez, you know, all the money was gone.
Right. And it just sounds like, one, having that structure, but was that kind of, a problem that was created with having the banks as the gatekeeper on this? And I know that we needed to have a bank keeper because, yes, you did not want the potentially forgivable loans being given to someone who was not a legitimate business, but at the same time, that hindered those who we thought should have been getting these loans, the business down in Deep Ellum, the person who's doing the IT consulting, and they have a couple of other employees and a project manager. Those guys should have been getting the PPP loans, and they may not have been with the big banking guys.
That's right. Yeah. And so on the round two, between round one and round two, what organizations like the National Development Council did was we were part of a national coalition, who went to DC and said, look, you really need to be working with community development financial institutions,
Okay.
CDFIs, whose mission, right? We are just like banks, except that we work to further community development goals for the local municipalities, right? So we're working in the public interest to advance those, distressed community goals. So creating jobs, expanding small business opportunities, really working with communities of color.
Okay.
And so that advocacy work resulting in round two, really focusing all of the lending activity with those CDFIs. And basically what the act did was put a pause on what those big financial institutions could process. So round two, we had a lead start as CDFIs to process all of those. So, thanks to folks like, Sydney and other folks that she helped me identify in Dallas and some of our other marketplaces, we didn't advertise it. We said, we only have an interest in serving business owners of color and women.
Yes.
And that's how we fed our PPP pipeline. And the other thing we did is, frankly, we hired people to help us process PPP that are from within the community that have been displaced by COVID. So there's a double, benefit. And that's what CDFIs are known for, right? That's what we do, is we look for maximizing and flowing, because if I'm hiring people who've been impacted, I'm training them in a new skill, and also deploying dollars, then that means that I'm really pouring more of that CARES Act money back into the city of Dallas and into that broader regional area. Right.
To make sure that, the economy isn't impacted as greatly because of the pandemic. So, Tawanna, I see you nodding your head with this, and I'm listening to you both, and I'm seeing, the opportunities that definitely have come about because of this. But I also kind of see, still some of the drawbacks. And I say drawbacks, it's a mindset. It feels like when it comes to really jumping into these waters and getting, and Raquel, I see you nodding, because, it is the having the accountant talking to the attorney. And I tell you what, even if the attorney is $400 an hour, that is still time, money well invested, with helping you navigate these waters. Because one, you are your product. You're that subject matter expert in what you're setting this business up for. You don't know these other avenues. And it seems like, especially us in the Black community, we are very hesitant to go and reach out to those other um, experts and hire them on, even if it's, piecemeal initially versus being able to have them as on as a retainer to really, help overcome these
Yeah.
kind of challenges, especially when it comes to times of there's a national emergency or a state emergency. There's a dip in the economy, and we're having to make that shift and pivot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cindy, you've said a mouthful. And you know me. You know this
Well,
is.
you know what? You guys educate me so well, so that it's y'all's fault.
Look, this is one of my soapbox. As Raquel, as you were talking, I wrote down. You have to educate yourself, ladies and gentlemen. You have to educate yourself. We were hit with a pandemic, okay? It really devastated and hurt the mom and pop companies. It hurt the small business enterprises. If you had less than 10 employees, it's devastating to lay off people and then deal with unemployment.
Yes.
All these things. I mean, I can go on. I think one of the mistakes that we make is not recognizing that when things are good or somewhat good, there is a piece of the pie for everybody. And you need to be in the game. Now, I've raised 4 sons, so I'm always thinking about sports in a game.
Okay.
You are a part of the game once you become an entrepreneur and you embark on this, what we call boss life. You're in the, whether you're the captain or you're on the bench playing the game. Because as you said, as the owner, you don't know everything. So a part of your team is the attorney, is the CPA or a good bookkeeper. You need a very good coach, a business expert to mentor, coach you, a trusted advisor. These are people that you need, and if you don't have them, you're making a mistake. Here's the other thing. You have to educate yourself about how to pivot and how to be ready for that rainy day. You got to have an economic policy in place for your business. So what am I saying? It's not just about sell. I got to reach that target audience. I got to have my marketing together. I got to do this and I got to do that. But you've got to also make sure you're planning with the reserves for your business. So because we don't know what's going to happen next year, or when there's going to be, this pandemic doesn't look like it's going away for a while. What's the next big thing that's going to happen?
That's exactly.
You have to remember that business is a game, and you have to always prepare to be game ready. That means consistently and constantly educating yourself on these certifications. Certification is a marketing tool. We have to stop being so afraid. Knowledge is power and it matters. What you don't know keeps you broke. When these times come, you don't have a reserve because you didn't plan and prepare. And we have to stop that. We have to stop that as a community. If we have to believe in ourselves, because we know we're the subject matter expert, right? We know our niche, we know our industry, but then you have to create and pull a team around you that you can trust, and they know their stuff. You need a Raquel, you need a Tawanna, you need a Sydney. You need people that will tell you, educate you, help you, and then point you to resources.
Right.
Resources to share today. We have time for that. But you have to make sure you're constantly learning and knowing. Certifications can accelerate your business overnight. I did say I won my first
Seven-figure contract in 6 months.
Really, it was less than 6 months. Okay. And then the next one came right after that. My first contract, I was a subcontractor. So I worked with a larger company, a prime, that oversaw the entire contract. But my next contract, I was the prime. Because guess what? Because now I've got, okay, write this one down, businesses, relationships, and resources. Now that I'm a subcontractor, I have this new relationship that's educating me, teaching me, instructing me, and showing me, even by their example, how to play this game. Because remember, I said business is a game and you play to win. Otherwise, you're going to always be sitting on the sideline, losing and watching everybody else. We got to stop saying what the other groups are doing or what the other communities got, or, you know, we got to stop looking. I am talking about the mindset here. We got to stop looking all over the place and look to yourself and surround yourself around like-minded people who want to win the game and start winning.
And not be afraid to partner up with others that are doing something similar. So if you're just tuning in here, I have Coach Tawanna, I am Raquel Favela on talking about, you know, business during these times. And so Raquel, I saw you nodding your head, and I know that you have witnessed this, not just from a small business side, but you have also been on the side with, you know, a government agency looking at those bids and proposals, and the RFQ, RFP process, and saying, yeah, you know, we're going to choose this particular package to, you know, supply toilet paper or copy paper, or even as much as doing a study, because the city of Dallas loves to do studies, but I digress.
They really do.
You know, it seems like, you know, with these particular times, nobody was prepared for it. So when you were in that, I'm gonna say day minus to day, you know, it is 6 months, 5 years, 60 months, do the math on it. How do you navigate those kind of waters when during that time, as Tawanna says, sell, you're looking to make those close those sales, close those deals, and every dollar you're getting in is already been allocated before you even get the check.
That's right. So again, that's one of the reasons I want to address two things. That's one of the reasons why the fundamentals are important, because at your structuring, you want to make sure that you are understanding, out of every dollar that I'm going to earn, how much of that am I going to get to keep, and how much of it am I going to have to pay to Uncle Sam?
Okay.
Right? So if you think about that in that way, for every dollar I earn, how much of that goes to taxes, I think you'll start to prioritize, right, the tax management, right? So that whole issue of the S corporation versus, you know, any other type of structure. So that's the first. The second is that here's the other issue for small business owners, particularly those in the minority community.
Okay.
What we don't understand is that you cannot run your business finances the same way that you're advised to run your personal finances. Now, Sydney, you know that I've been running, well, before COVID hit, I was running this whole net, you know, asset wealth building little chat on my Facebook, because I think that's important. And so for all the advice that I've been giving folks on your personal finances, you need to erase that on your business.
On your business. Okay. Now, what's the biggest, I don't want to say challenge, but the biggest difference between, and you said, you know, your tax liability.
Yeah.
But what else, you know, falls in there?
The big mistake that business owners make is they want to finance their business with cash. and they think, I need to buy everything with cash. I need to buy my real estate with cash. I need to own everything in my business in cash. And that is not true. It's not correct. It's not in your best interest. Right? So the way that you need to think about your business is you have long-term liabilities and long-term assets, right? So that's a way of talking about sources and uses of funds. That may be a better way for people to understand. But essentially, you want to make sure that you have a long-term source of funds to fund your long-term uses in a business, right? So a real estate, your building is a long-term asset, right? You need to fund that with a long-term liability, a long-term use of source of funds, right? So a mortgage, not cash, because cash is a short-term source.
Oh, yes.
Okay, it's a short-term. So if you look at a balance sheet for a business, they are listed in order of liquidity. Cash is on top, right? It's the most liquid. It's cash. Yes. And then you go down to the longest term. So for people who have never looked at a balance sheet for a business, go look at any balance sheet. When you look at assets and liabilities, they're listed in that order, shortest to longest term. And those need to match. So long-term liabilities need to be funded with long-term assets. Short-term liabilities need to be funded with short-term assets. So that way, as Tawanna said, when you need to preserve your cash for emergency needs. That's what you need cash for, right? You don't need cash to be funding your inventory or to be funding your major permanent working capital. Absolutely not. Your permanent working capital in the business should be funded with a long-term source of funds. And there's a ton of it out there, right? There's small business loans from the SBA. There's a ton of from different cities, different county governments, right? They offer small business financing. So those are great sources of funds for that, but not cash. Because your cash should be saved for when you're going to experience rapid growth. That is defined as any time that you're going to experience more than 20% increase in your business. If you're going to experience more than 20% growth in your business, that's considered rapid growth rate. And that means that you're going to need to have enough cash to make sure, because it takes time for $1 to turn back into $1. Right? Because you're going to invest it into raw materials, and then you're going to have finished goods, then you're going to sell it, then you're going to give somebody 30 days to pay you back that $1, right? Then by the time that $1 makes it back to you, that took time to get that $1 back. So in order for you to get the best bang out of that, you need to make sure you're not financing that out of cash.
Wow. I mean, you brought up such a great cycle. And immediately I thought about my registered dietitian days and being a Medicare, Medicaid provider, knowing that 6 months, it would take potentially up to 6 months to get that $35. And what did I need to do to survive during that time to wait for that money to come in?
That's exactly why I love that Tawanna says that government contracting can't be the first place you go to, because again, I can only say this because I've been a government employee and God love us, but we take forever to pay. We just do. Because it takes 20 signatures just to approve your invoice. And, try as we may.
The bureaucracy kind of gets
it lays on your bureaucracy. And because we have to be accountable, right, to the public. And so those 20 signatures, everybody will go back and say, well, who dropped the ball on not reviewing whether this is a legitimate invoice, right? So not to bring up any headlines, but yes, right? Everybody will hold somebody accountable for it. So that bureaucracy will take time before a check is cut. And so if you're relying on government contracting as your first place, then that means you will not have potentially any revenue, right, for that money to come in, and your business may not survive.
Okay. Now, I know Coach Tawanna has personal experience with knowing the private sector, number one, operates a lot faster with cutting those invoices. I can definitely attest to that as well. But you want to get into that game. So knowing, and I want people to hear this and take heed, we are not saying don't go after those government contracts, but do understand that that is kind of like the fondant that goes over the wedding cake once it's already been iced up.
Right.
It's guaranteed money for sure.
That's right.
But do understand that it's going to take, as the kids say, it's going to take a minute before you see that check. But to want to, talk about that private sector, one, they usually turn around their money a lot faster.
They do, and they have, and since I'm pretty much talking about certifications, because I do want your audience to understand that the private sector, I'm talking thousands of companies and corporations that are looking to do business with you even now during this time. Because guess what they've had to do? They've had to pivot, and they have needs. They have needs, and you got to be in the game again to play and participate. They have supply diversity programs, just like you hear the term diversity inclusion with employees. Guess what? They have diversity and inclusion with corporations, small business owners, women, LGBTQ, veterans, and minorities. And I'm gonna keep beating that drum because there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings about people's understanding about this market space. And people are looking to, well, federal government contract, of course, it's a big, it's big, right? They buy everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything from road tires to rats. However, you have an opportunity to diversify your portfolio as a business owner and work in a different lane for, oh, Raquel, you're gonna love this one, past performance. Guess what happens when you start chasing that business and you win those contracts? Now your business, the capacity of your business is expanding, it's growing, and you have a reference, a big one. So for an example, because I'm sure somebody's thinking, well, that can't include me. Well, I mean, if you're a makeup artist, did you know that Disney and MGM have an MBE supply diversity program? And they would love to have you as a makeup artist or a hairstylist. How about Ford Motor Company or Toyota? How about Hewlett Packard, CVS? How about Coca-Cola? I work with a young lady in Atlanta, Georgia, who does sign language. She had a contract with Coca-Cola.
Wow.
I mean, you have companies like Sam's, Walmart. Go to Amazon and do a Google search on their MBE program. I'm telling you, you're going to be blown away. All of these corporations, Fortune 500, 100 companies, they have these set aside dollars, mandatory set aside dollars, just like the federal government. And it's a great way to build capacity with your small business and capabilities, because by the time you start looking at doing business with the government, now you have both. And if you don't, if you feel like you want to keep growing, let me throw this in here too. You can team or partner with another firm that's doing the same thing you're doing. Two are better than one last time I checked. When you combine and you work together, I do it all the time. Oh, I did say I won my first 7-figure contract as a subcontractor. We teamed, we worked together.
Yes.
And those opportunities are there. I will tell you that the government likes that. Public municipalities like that and appreciate that. I remember when I won a contract with NTTA, North Texas Tollway Authority. They love seeing a Black woman coming in as a prime and an Asian subcontractor woman who was 8A certified. They loved it. And we won that contract too. So these are things to consider. These are things to consider as we think about how else can we scale during this time? What other opportunities are there? Because they're there. Like I said, these corporations, they have pivoted as well. And they've got needs.
Okay. And so these are opportunities that they are not wanting to have the liability of hiring staff to do those things. Okay.
Right.
So,
I mean,
it doesn't make sense for the business to hire when it is for a temporary need or service, right? So they will hire on contract because they don't want to have the legacy costs of, you know, benefits and, you know, all the other things that they would have, but they'll definitely hire on contract. And what's great for a minority business on that is that they won't incur, as a subcontractor, they're not responsible for carrying the level of insurance that the government usually requires. So I can tell you, because our organization is a nonprofit, and when we do government contracting, it is a huge priority for us to make sure that we partner with a minority or women-owned business. And we do that because we know that they're not going to be able to meet the insurance requirements. And so one way for us to deal with that is we carry all of that insurance as an organization. So it really helps the small business owner in that way. And then it
helps them have that opportunity to gain the experience, get the capacity, learn the ropes, all of those things. Because I'll tell you what, I going to school and becoming a dietitian, I always knew I didn't want to work for someone. But initially I did because I needed to learn the game of how to file claims to get the reimbursement back for the services that I provided under medical nutrition therapy billing codes. So I knew that I needed to take a hit. So I was basically making myself a sub as being an employee. So for those that are transitioning, it's a mindset. I do want you guys to take away from their conversation that, you know, your mindset, your fear, all of those things will definitely get in the way of you making those next steps forward with taking the opportunity to capitalize on what's going on right now. I know a lot of my friends have talked about, you know, buying stock because, you know, it's everybody tanked for a while. It's, you know, it's a bear market right now. And so there's a lot of volatility. Those that like the risk are going, heck yeah, keep plummeting because I'm going to go scoop up some more of those stocks. So ladies, I definitely want to talk about any resources that we can shift everyone to look up, to reach out to. Raquel, do you have any resources that you want to share with the audience and anyone viewing later on about where to go?
I do. Well, unfortunately, PPP today is the last day for anyone to apply for the extended PPP program. Now, there's obviously talk about another round of PPP and other, you know, CARES Act funding. So I would say, you know, keep on the lookout for those. But locally, the city of Dallas on next week's council agenda will be considering adding another funding round to their small business continuity fund.
Okay.
And so you should look for that item on the council agenda. Dallas County, so for businesses that are in Dallas County, but outside of the city of Dallas, there is still funding available there. They just last week approved another $8.4 million in their small business loan program.
Okay.
And so they've got now, honestly, their first round was 5 million. Their second round was 30 million. And this last third round, they approved another 8.4 million. So they've really dedicated a significant amount of their CARES Act dollars to small business assistance.
Well, that's very good to hear, since there was such a couple of vocal county commissioners with Dallas County with getting businesses back open and not necessarily discussing some of the safeguard measures so people did not get sick. So that is great to hear that the focus has been so put into with those dollars for Dallas County businesses. All right. So, but you guys have also been servicing like the city of Frisco, other areas north of Dallas County to help out businesses overall. Are you doing anything Austin, San Antonio, South Texas, Houston?
We don't have any available, and I did check with the folks in San Antonio. All of their funding has been depleted. The funding in Frisco and Allen, which we were servicing, has been depleted. But we're still servicing the city of McKinney. There's still some applications in their pipeline. And so depending on whether all of those that are in the pipeline qualify, there could potentially be additional applications. But each of those cities allocated over $3 million, each of them, to small business loan funds. So honestly, for relative to the city of Dallas and their size, I think that was a really good amount. I think really for the city of McKinney, if all that's in the pipeline qualifies, they probably will have enough funding in there to fund every business that's in there.
Wow, that is incredible. That's incredible. Thank you so much for that information. I tried to type in as much as I could for the areas that are still being serviced. Coach Tawanna, you have some information that you want to share via screen share. Go ahead.
Yes, I sure would. Okay, so I would like to just, I'm gonna share just two, but for the sake of, I was talking earlier about educating yourself as a small business owner. It's extremely important, absolutely critical. Continuing education. The SBA, Small Business Administration, is an outstanding resource, free. We like free sometimes, don't we, right? Let's see, hang on one second. I do have another one here that I want to show you. We talked a little bit here about the government, right? And so here's one. Can you see that?
Yes, it's starting to come up.
This is Ptac, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. This is a great resource if you want to determine if your company is ready for government opportunities and how to get ready. They can help you with everything from capacity and capabilities, marketing, certification, networking, contracting, resources, tips, and even bidding or proposal preparation. All right, and that is free. Here's another one for you. I just have one more that I want to share with you. Give me a second here. Let's see.
In Del Mar College, I used to drive by there quite a bit with my internship down in South Texas via Kingsville, because I am a javelina.
Ah, very good.
Yes. All right, so while you're pulling that up, Tawanna, I do want to give some shout outs here. Raquel, Eric Wilson sends his hellos to you.
Oh, good. Hello.
Yes. And he does have a question that he wants more explanation on the importance of minority businesses forming those temporary joint ventures in order to win those bids. So it's want to make sure you finish this resource, and you guys, we can close out on that question there.
Okay, so this one, can you see the screen? It says America's SBDC. Yes. So this is a small business development center right in Dallas, the Dallas area. For Ptac and for SBDC, they're all over the country. So I know you have listeners everywhere.
Yes.
All you have to do is search. I will tell you, I love the office in Dallas with the SBDC. And I'm going to give a shout out to Miss Karen Collins. She is bad. She is awesome, returns phone calls, and she will help you. And nobody paid me for that pitch. But resources is what we want. We want information, we want knowledge, because knowledge matters. And then you want to pay someone. I am a business expert, I'm a coach, and I wrote the book, The Roadmap on Certification, right here on my website.
Yes.
Everything that you need to know about certifying your business, the process of certifying your business, because it is a process. It's an application process. It's lengthy. And I work with entrepreneurs all over the country on this process done with you, so that you get it right the first time and you don't delay, because you do have to wait up to about 3 months, 90 days from the time you submit your application. So that's very, very important.
Okay.
So, joint ventures. Were we talking about the question? Read that question to me one last time.
So, what is that process with, forming those temporary joint ventures to land a contract? Now, Raquel, I have my Raquel hat on, because that is the most definite time to go visit the attorney to draw up your documentation, how things will be laid out, on how payments will happen, percentage of the contract, all of that good stuff. Right. Once that has been hashed out, what does it look like, teaming up with another business minority in order to gain that contract?
Right. The first step is really, you've got to read the procurement, right, that you want to partner on. So, because each procurement will be slightly different, each government procurement. And so let's say, for instance, that the prime needs to partner with an MWBE. And in order to partner for that particular solicitation, they must have MWBE represent 51% of the value of the contract. So if you're proposing that you could deliver X service for $1 million, that means that the minority or women-owned business has to be benefiting 51% of that $1 million contract.
Okay.
So if you're the minority woman-owned business, you need to set up your deal points with that prime to understand exactly which services you're going to be responsible for, and they have to equal 51% of that $1 million, right?
Okay.
And you have to be real clear. So I think that you can sort of come up with informally at the time you're putting the proposal together. Mm-hmm. At the time that you get selected, then that's when you want to spend the money on the attorney to formalize your agreement.
That agreement.
Yeah. So you go through that because you definitely don't want to spend the money on every proposal that you're putting together. You want to do it when it's a real contract.
Okay. Tawanna, since you actually lived that.
Yes, I live it, and I'm living it now. I'm in the middle of a teaming agreement right now, and it's huge. The way you begin this process, especially if you're going to be working under a prime, I always say to business owners, you need to determine where you want to be, what position you like to be in. You want to be on the top, or do you want to be on the bottom? If you want to be on the top, obviously you're going to be the prime. You're going to oversee that entire contract. But if you're not going to be the prime, if you're a subcontractor, let me tell you this, make sure you educate yourself and become very familiar, if you're going to be doing government contracting, on the FAR. That's FAR, Federal Acquisitions Regulations. And specifically at FAR number 9 and number 26. You need to understand what your role is with the prime. You need to understand what your role is in this game. Remember, you're playing a game to win, and you have a responsibility and you have a role, and the government goes to the FAR for everything. It's their Bible, it's their roadmap, it's the rules and regulations that they will make sure that everybody is following, even down to payment. So you want to do that first. The second thing that I would say about teaming, joint ventures, partnerships, networking. You've got to get out there and you got to network. Now, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but there are a lot of webinars and Zooms that are going on. I know the city of Dallas, I still get emails all the time from DISD. They are always having Zoom webinars on how to do business with them. You have to network. And when I say network, I mean network that connects. You can't be in the room quiet. You have to be in the room speaking up and making your presence known. How you doing? I'm Tawanna. I'm Tawanna Heyward-Bey, and my business is a payroll and staffing company. I would love to spend some time talking with you about how we can bring value to the team for this particular contract. Did I demonstrate that okay? That's relationships. You have to build the relationships. You have to network that connect. You have to let these larger companies know that we are here. We are experts. We know what we're doing. We do have past performance. We've done this before. We've got money. You know, you have to communicate. You have to let them know you can trust us. Give us a piece of pie with you. Give us an opportunity. I talk with business owners in transportation, construction, janitorial services, because these are the services that seem to be really busy right now with this pandemic.
Sure.
And so have those conversations, and again, let your presence be known. You want an opportunity to team. You want an opportunity to joint venture. You want an opportunity to partner. Because this is what your company can bring to the table. Sure. If you're not doing that, guess what's not going to happen? No partnerships, no teaming, no. So you have to be networking, and networking that connect, networking that's making an impact, because business is relationships, business is resources, and that's how you are able to develop a team. Then, like Raquel said, now you need to be talking to your lawyer once they come to the table with, okay, because remember, they're looking at these solicitations, these requests for proposals, these requests for bids, which are different, the requests for information, the requests for qualifications. They know what the requirements are. Guess what? You need to know what those requirements are too. So when you're networking and you're having these conversations, maybe at a pre-bid meeting, that's another place. Now you can speak intelligently to the project, what's going on, letting those decision makers know that you know what's going on too, and you're ready to bring your A game, because you are A game ready. You're ready to be on the team. You're ready to venture. You're ready to partner. Oh, this is how you scale, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you build. This is how you make money. I know.
All right. I feel like, I have been to business church. Can I get an amen? Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Gosh, there was so much information that you guys have given. And I always say this with all my shows. I mean, we just scratch the absolute surface of things. And gosh, ladies, I hope this was a great experience. Raquel, since this was your first time, I hope you are willing to come back on. As you see,
absolutely, anytime.
Yes, I definitely have guests that come back on. Coach Tawanna, thank you so much for giving your time and your knowledge, coming on and speaking to everyone. Raquel, again, thank you so much for coming on and discussing, what else is going on, where people can be looking for resources during this time. And if you're not Dallas County or even Collin or Denton County, and you're not even in Texas, definitely look at your municipality, your county, your state before looking with the federal dollars. As we know, relief is still in negotiations at this time. So again, ladies, thank you so much for your time, for coming on and discussing this during this critical time right now. So definitely want to wish everyone a cool weekend. Make sure you're staying cool, drinking your fluids. And we're going to be having a discussion on black crime, because it seems like Black folks just have the carte blanche on crime that's committed against oneself. So I will be joined by Shirley Carswell, who is a professor at Howard University, that will be coming on to discuss this and what that means for the Black Lives Movement. So again, thank you, ladies, for coming on. Everyone else, take care, and we will see you next Saturday at 10 a.m.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.